Hello everyone, I'm going to do a relatively quick, hopefully video this time on this effect I did for a short film. The short film was done in a 10-day complete timeline, so it was shot in a day, edited in 3, and then I did sound in 2 with music and all that stuff, and it was rendered in another. So it was done relatively quickly, so I didn't have that much time to iterate on the process for the sound effects, although I did get this one that I was pretty happy with, and what it sounds like is this. Its purpose is to kind of alert the main character and entice her into going into the creepy forest where she meets all these funky characters. And so I wanted to have a voice quality, but also not be super discernible and not say anything in particular, but kind of be this ghosty, removed voice sound. So what I did is I took this sample.
You know the rules, Hagma.
And that's with this giant reverb on, but I took the reverb off now, and
You know the rules, Hagma.
you can kind of get an idea of what it sounds. It's just a super regular dialogue from later on in the storyline, but I'm kind of just using it for tearing it apart and doing all this editing. So first off, I threw on Space Designer, one of the textures under the warped effects. I can't remember exactly which one because it doesn't necessarily say. It says texture 60. And what this basically does is it adds a ton of stuff. It adds reverb to it, which is important, but it also adds all these other little ghosty qualities. It pans it between the two ears.
You know the rules, Hagma.
And kind of has lots of little delays after it as well, which is really, really cool. And what I did is I reversed it and then did some other stuff to it. But because Logic works in an interesting way, its reversing is done through file editing as opposed to track editing. So what it does is it actually goes in and edits the initial file. So because I use that file later on, I don't want to just reverse this. I want to bounce it in place first and create a new copy of it. That copy also includes this reverb on it as well, which is kind of what I want to work with as well here. So as you can see, this is the initial version. This is the bounced version with the reverb. It's significantly longer. It's got that really cool tail, lots of rich added stuff in there too. And so I'm going to mute that and go in to double click, or you can hit E on it. You can go into the track and file editor. File editor under functions is where you have this reverse. You can also flip it and trim it and do this other stuff to it as well. But reverse is what I used here. And it just basically reverses the track. So it brings in this reverb. But of course, you do hear the actual voice itself, which kind of is not what I'm looking for. So I'll drag it over into place a little bit better here. And then I'll trim it down. And then hitting T and then A to bring up my fade tool, I just click drag and then fade this down and then click drag again to fade this in. So it comes a little like this. But of course you get that little bit of a low voice right there. So I'll switch over to the final track and show what I did. I first off did this ridiculous high pass filter on it with the EQ. 2900 hertz, which is pretty high up there. So you're just getting the very, very tip top of it. And I'll bring up the analyzer. You can kind of see all the stuff I'm cutting out with this. So it's really just this like 2K, 3K, 4K information. Really high up there. Very ghosty, very airy and breathy, which is really what I was looking for. And then what I did to kind of give it this a little quality so it fades out a little bit after the cut is I just added a regular bright hall reverb on there as well. So kind of creates this little ghosty quality, very airy and high and stuff like that. And then I mixed it down enough to where it doesn't interfere, but because I high passed it, also lets a lot of the footsteps and the music kind of come through as well, so it kind of creates a good balance between that. But this is a relatively well-used process throughout lots of different sound design. I know a lot of the time they do narration, they do this kind of throw a reverb on it, then reverse it. Or they just reverse it, then throw the reverb on it, and then flip it back so the reverb kind of brings it into it. It's kind of just an interesting process. But reversing and reverbing is such a simple thing that you can do, and it adds lots of different characters and qualities, and especially with with Space Designer. It lets you get all these interesting qualities and artifacts throughout the process. But yeah, thanks for checking this out, and I hope you learned something.